Ever since I was a little girl and watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, well, I wanted to make my own chocolates.
Boys and girls, the chocolate room.
And who wouldn't want to surprise family and friends with shiny, beautiful chocolates with decadent centers? And today, we're gonna do just that. In this episode, we'll demystify the process of tempering chocolate with our 1, 2, 3 easy method. We'll show you 2 foolproof ways to make your chocolate shiny and beautiful, all while using household ingredients. So join us as we make homemade peanut butter chocolates that are almost too pretty to eat, right here on Lori Garcia Studios. To make these chocolates, you'll need a few different items, but most of these you probably already have in your kitchen. First, you'll need a microwave-safe bowl. I like glass, a silicone spatula, a digital thermometer. I've been using this one since I stole it from my husband. But I recently got this instant read one that is amazing. You just shoot it at the chocolate and it gives you an instant temperature reading. Genius. You'll also need a candy mold. I like these acetate ones because they're easy to work with. And you'll need a bench scraper. I'll put a link to these items in the description below if you don't have them already. Making chocolates is even easier if you have a solid stone surface like granite or marble. It makes the whole process easier. It's not required though, so no worries if you don't have that kind of work surface. Since you know that I'm a lazy chef, you know that I like to use items I already have in my kitchen and ones that don't cost an arm and a leg. In a lot of chocolate tutorials, they tell you to use the very best chocolate. But honestly, that can get pricey. And chocolate chips, well, they're delicious. You probably already have them in your pantry, and they're relatively cheap. So today, my lazy girlfriends, we are using chocolate chips. Just make sure you're using real chocolate, not chocolate-flavored chips, and you should be golden. Today, I'm using milk chocolate chips, and yes, the type of chocolate you use will determine what temperatures you need. So do yourself a favor if this is your first time, and make sure you're using milk chocolate. Besides, today we're making chocolates that are a copycat of a famous peanut butter and chocolate candy. So to get this recipe right, you'll need milk chocolate anyway. To make delicious, beautiful, shiny chocolates that hold their shape and have a nice snap, you'll need to do a process called tempering. But don't worry, it's really not that hard. If you can use a digital thermometer, you can temper chocolate. What happens if you don't temper your chocolate? Well, it kind of looks like this. It remains dull. It can have streaks in it, and it never really sets up. But with my simple directions, this is going to be a piece of cake, or should I say a piece of chocolate. So we'll have you tempering chocolate like a pro in no time. Here's the easy 3-step process on how to temper chocolate. First, you melt the chocolate to a relatively high temperature. Second, you bring it down to a cooler temperature. And last, you raise the chocolate back up just a little bit so it's easier to work with. See, I told you it wasn't rocket science. So we're going to start by adding a bag of milk chocolate chips, about 12 ounces, to your microwave-safe bowl. We're going to microwave this on high for about 30 seconds. Test the chocolate chips by trying to stir them. If they melt easily, you should be good. If not, return it to the microwave for another 30 seconds. Note, if you're using a plastic bowl, it could take less time. After about 30 to 60 seconds total, the chocolate chips should be nice and melted when you give them a stir. Go ahead and check the temperature. We're going to try to get the temperature to fall between 105 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Here mine says 108 with this digital thermometer, and with the instant read one, it says 106. So we're just about perfect. There we have it. We have completed step 1, melted the chocolate to the high temperature. Next comes step 2, bring the chocolate down to the cooler temperature. There are 2 ways to do this. 1, by scraping it around a cold stone surface, or 2, by adding more chocolate. This is called seeding. I like the cold stone method because it seems quicker and a little therapeutic. Or as my 14-year-old would say, it's more satisfying. I'm going to show you both methods so you can decide what you like best. With the cold stone method, you dump your chocolate out on a clean stone surface. And using your bench scraper, you move the chocolate around to cool it down. This feels a little childlike, like I'm playing with my food. But I don't mind. And as Ashton says, there's something very satisfying about scraping the chocolate around as well. I could do this all day, but we can't, because if we do, the chocolate will cool down too much. As you scrape your chocolate, you can feel it start to thicken. When this starts to happen, scrape the chocolate back into the bowl, mix it around, and take its temperature. To cool it down properly, we're aiming for about 82 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to get mine as close to 82 degrees as possible. Here, mine is still a bit on the high side, so I'm going to give it another quick scrape. But that being said, the temperature dropped pretty darn quickly. This is why I love this method. Okay, I don't want to go too long here, or I will drop the temperature too low and I'll have to start the whole process over again. So we'll scrape it back into the bowl and test it again. But I found that I get the best shine when it's about 82 degrees. So now my reading is a little under 82, so time to stop. Should the temperature have gotten below 80 degrees, then it would be too cold and I would need to restart the whole process over again. Now on to step 3. Now we need to raise the temperature of our chocolate just a few degrees. Why, you ask? So it'll be easier to work with. So I'm going to pop my bowl back into the microwave for 5 seconds. Yep, only 5 seconds. I don't want to undo what I just did, and I need to keep my chocolate under 90 degrees at all costs. So after 5 seconds in the microwave, let's do a quick temperature check. And yep, at 86 degrees, we are perfect. Congratulations, we have just tempered chocolate. So now is when it gets real. We have to work fast or our chocolate will get too cold and be too hard to pour and work with. We're going to spoon our chocolate over our mold, and you really don't have to be perfect here. Just try to get a majority of the chocolate on the top of the mold. Then spread it around using a spatula, making sure that you're filling each cavity. Then you're going to want to tap the mold on the countertop a few times to release the air bubbles and make sure that the molds are fully coated. If your temperature of your chocolate isn't warm enough, it will be harder to coat the mold. If you look closely, you can see air bubbles being released to the surface. Now we're going to scrape off the excess chocolate back into your bowl, and you're going to want to do this process again. Now you're going to flip over the mold and tap it on the countertop to remove excess chocolate. Scrape the mold again and scrape off the excess chocolate from the countertop. Repeat this process a couple of times until the excess chocolate is removed from the mold. Then you're going to pop your mold into the freezer for a few minutes to harden. In the meantime, we're going to make our rich peanut butter centers. You'll need a stick of butter, a cup of creamy peanut butter, 5 graham crackers, crushed, and 1 cup of powdered sugar. Melt the butter and place it in your mixer with the paddle attachment. Measure out the cup of peanut butter. An easy way to prevent the peanut butter from sticking to the measuring cup is to first coat your measuring cup with cooking spray. Comes out nice and easy every time. Add your graham cracker crumbs, and finally your powdered sugar. Mix until it's well incorporated. You want your texture to be a wet dough. Let's test ours. And that's exactly what we're looking for. If it was dry and firm, we'd want to add a tablespoon or two more of melted butter. Remove your chocolate mold from the freezer and set it aside. Then we're going to grab a zip top bag. Cut a smallish hole on the corner and fill the bag with our peanut butter mixture. Fill each mold cavity with the filling, leaving a fair bit of space at the top. If you fill your chocolate completely to the top, there won't be space for the chocolate to seal the candy shut. Next, tap down the peanut butter with a damp finger. If the filling starts to stick to your finger, dip it in the water again. Set the chocolate mold aside, but do not place it back into the freezer at this step. Next, you're going to re-temper your chocolate. If we had already made our filling, we might have been able to keep our chocolate at the correct temperature, so we didn't have to re-temper it. But since I wanted to show you the other method of how to temper chocolate, I did it this way. To re-temper your chocolate, we're going to go back to step 1, heating the chocolate to the high temperature. Since you have less chocolate in it now, you'll use less time. For me, it was about 30 seconds, but you could try 15 seconds first as to not overheat your chocolate. I'll take the chocolate out of the microwave and give it a stir and test the temperature. Here we're registering at 109, which is within our temperature range of 105 to 113. So we are perfect. Now it's on to step 2, cooling down the chocolate. Before I showed you how to use the cold stone method, and now we're going to do the seeding method. This works best if you don't have a cold stone surface to work on. To seed the chocolate and bring the temperature down, you'll want to add some chocolate chips. The rule of thumb is that you add about a quarter of the amount chocolate chips to the amount of melted chocolate. Now stir your chocolate so that the chocolate chips are melted. This will lower your chocolate's temperature, eventually. The reason I don't love this method is that it takes a lot longer. So now the chocolate chips are starting to melt. Let's test the temperature. Okay, we're at 91 degrees, so we still have a ways to go. After 4 minutes now, we're still at 89 degrees, so we'll keep waiting. Now you don't have to keep stirring, but if you walk away from your chocolate, you could forget about it and the temperature could fall too low, so you can't just abandon it. I decided to do some dishes for a while I was waiting, but I kept a watchful eye, and every couple of minutes I checked the temperature. 9 minutes later, I was finally registering at 86 degrees. If this was the top of my chocolates, I would wait until it got about 82 degrees so that the chocolate turned out super shiny. But as I'm impatient and this chocolate is for the bottoms, I'm calling it. Just like before, you want to spoon your chocolate onto your mold, making sure to cover every cavity. Then use your bench scraper to clean off the excess chocolate. Put the excess chocolate into the bowl and use your bench scraper to remove any more chocolate. Then pop the mold back into the freezer to set up. You can place any remaining chocolate on parchment paper to cool. Once cooled, place it in a zip-top bag and store it in the pantry. You can re-temper chocolate and reuse it. But once I've used chocolate on the back of my molds and it's touched filling, like this one did with the peanut butter, I label it as such and only use it on the backside of the same type of chocolates. Or you could also use the chocolate by chopping it up into chunks and using it as chocolate chips in a cookie. Once your chocolates have been in the freezer for a while, 30 minutes or so, you can check them to see if they're ready. You should be able to see where the chocolate is releasing from the mold. If the chocolates don't fall out instantly when you flip over the mold, you can give it a good bang or two on the countertop to encourage the process. And look how amazingly shiny they are. These beauties will impress even your toughest critics. And how do they taste? One word: heavenly.
So now that you can make your own chocolates, you better be making me some. Just kidding, of course. But really, we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so many combinations you can make, from dark chocolate and creamy coconut to white chocolate and tangy citrus. The possibilities are endless. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, I'm Lori, and this is Lori Garcia Studios.